Kevin,
All
it's
right.
good to talk to you, man. It's good to see you. It's good to have your conversation. How are you?
I'm excellent. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
It's
Good.
you know what, for me and for people who may be checking this out, obviously they're going to be interested to hear about your time in Slik Toxik. That's the band. That's a big part of your career, right? But you've done
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yes, I
Uh,
have.
the last I heard anything about you music wise that I read anywhere was the band Punishment that you have or had. I'm not sure where the
Had.
status had. Okay.
Had. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about that too for sure. But I want to go all the way back with you, man, if we can,
Sure.
because before Slik Toxic, before your professional career, you had a whole, you became a musician somehow. So where did it start for Kevin? Where did you first decide to get into music?
Um,
What inspired
you
you?
know, Getting into music, my brother actually played guitar, and I was about 7 years old, and I remember being sick at home from school one day, and I remember just picking up his, little crappy, nylon string acoustic, and looking at a chord book and going, oh, well, there's the six strings, and there's where you put your fingers, and so that's how I picked it up and started playing that way, and then just sort of progressed from there.
Did you start playing any like local high school bands? Did you just play at
Oh
home
yeah,
and kind of
I mean,
practice,
like,
or
oh yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there was there's guys from high school, and my first band, which was a band called Genocide. We started doing originals and started writing originals as well as playing, Priest covers and Maiden covers and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's where I got, like saying, this is what I want to do is, writing music, writing songs, and doing it from that kind of age, and always starting at that point.
did you have any guitarists that kind of influenced you when you were kind of listening to music growing up?
Yeah, I'm still a big Rush fan, and Alex Lifeson is definitely one of my influences. And then being exposed to guys like Michael Schenker and Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page, and the list goes on. I mean, I don't necessarily have a favorite guitarist. I like guitarists for whatever they've done and whatever they've contributed.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you can take bits and pieces of different guitar players and go, yeah, I like him for this, and I like this guy for this, and I like this guy for this. That's the best part about music.
So where did you when you had the band in high school, Genocide, where there's a gap there between you starting professionally and doing that in high school. So what took you to the next step versus you going and doing something else? What made you decide, okay, I'm going to actually be able to pursue this as a guitarist?
Well, I don't necessarily know if there was an action thing other than the fact that I was having a hell of a lot of fun. And back playing with guys, when you're in high school and stuff, that was a lot of fun because you develop the camaraderie of being in a band at that point. You develop the whole, it's the gang of
Yeah,
guys and we're out to take the world, right? So it's
exactly.
that whole kind of, it was good to sit there and write with guys and that whole musical thing where you can feel the other guy, what he's going to do and what you're going to do. And it's a whole unwritten thing. It was like a sports team, right? Except you're
Yeah,
playing on a stage.
yeah,
Right? So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was, it's pretty cool.
Did you grow up in the Toronto area? Are you from that area?
Yeah, actually I did. I grew up in the Toronto area, and, I got to play, Larry's Hideaway and,
No, nice.
the Gasworks and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And Nags Head North and all that stuff. It was a great time to be in bands when I was growing up.
yeah, it was, and it's not like that now, and it never will be like that
Oh,
again.
oh no, it's
No, no,
not.
no.
No.
That's it. It's
But it's still
over.
a
Yeah,
lot of fun, right?
yeah,
It's still a lot of fun, and I still do it, and I still have a great time doing it.
yeah. And you have the experience of that you can share, which is what you're doing now too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where does it start as far as Slik Toxic goes? Are you one of the founding members? Did you jump into it like Neil
Yeah,
did at the
and
end? Where did it happen?
it's funny how that worked. There was a battle of the bands at the concert hall in Toronto, and Nick's band Virgin Angel and my band Genocide were on the same bill. Obviously,
Oh,
it was a
wow.
battle of the bands. So we did that whole thing, and I basically made a complete idiot of myself on stage. We all have these things where you do really dumb stuff, and this was before the point I realized that you have to take your guitar cable and run it through your strap and in there so you don't accidentally unplug it. Well, guess what?
Yeah,
Did
it
that, right?
happens.
So, and then Nick and I met at Plaza Parkway Plaza in North York at Victoria Park and Ellesmere, And because like he grew up like, you know, around the corner from me, and I grew up in We've and that's how sort of the start of Slik Toxik came around. It was still Virgin Angel at that point, and then that's sort of how Slik Toxik came around. Then I left, and Nick got robbed. Then I came back, and then that was the whole thing.
That was the band.
Then he came board, and then that's how that all.
Did you lose that Battle of the Bands? I take it then.
Oh yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Just want to make sure. Just want to be clear, in case somehow you pulled it out.
Of course. Okay. That's a given, right? I mean, it's you know,
you never know. Could have had a happy ending, but it still did anyway. But
it actually did have a really happy ending. That's where, you know, Nick and I met. And that's where you know the whole Slik Toxik thing came in.
Exactly. He was, well, obviously he still is, but he was younger than you guys, right? He was a little bit
different. He was younger than us. I mean, Neil was the oldest. I'm not sure how much younger Nick was, but he always had a great voice. And he was a guitar player back then.
Oh wow.
As well as a singer. So he was doing both of that. Yeah, and he's always had a great voice, and he still has a great voice to this day.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
So his band became Slik Toxik. So you came back when he had already started to decide to change the name. How did that come about? What came with the name? Like, do you know where that process happened?
Well, we were recording with our old drummer before Neil came on board. We were recording with our old drummer, Alex Monroe, and our bass player Pat Howarth at the time came up with the name Slik Toxik, with the whole smooth and deadly, and you know the misspelling of it, and all that sort of jazz. And so that was really cool. And that night, this was out in Scarborough, and that night, so we're recording at a small little studio called Certain Circle Studios in Scarborough, where we rehearsed and we were recording. And we're standing there in the control room, and all of a sudden a barrel of a gun comes around the corner of the studio. And I turned around and went, what? It was the cops. They thought someone had broken in, or someone had broken in, so they come around the corner with their gun. I'm like,
you just poked their gun through the doorway, like, hello.
Yeah.
Here's a gun.
And then so we're like, and I'm like, oh my God, like there's like cops coming around the corner with a gun. It was absolutely great. It's absolutely freaking brilliant. You can't write this stuff, right? This is just the stuff that happens, and it's, you know, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I can say that's a good story. Somehow I missed that in the liner notes. Of the first record. Yeah, that wasn't there. That's cool. So between the time Alex was there and then Neil came in, I know talking to Neil, he was the last guy to join. How did that change happen?
Well, we had management, and then we were recording at Certain Circles, not Certain Circles, at Comfort Sound in Toronto. With Andrew St. George, believe it or not. He's done a whole bunch of records, Killer Dwarfs, Helix, you name it. But he only does things on the off shift, so he then records from like midnight till 6 a.m.
Oh wow.
So we're in there by midnight, right? So our drummer couldn't cut it. Like, he just wasn't making it. He just wasn't, you know, on the ball. And then Neil came in, and then bang, 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 and that's what the pattern was, and it just solidified it right from there.
Do you remember how you found Neil? Did you hear him before in his other band, Child, or how did you?
Our management actually found Neil. So, and they just said, yeah, we got this guy, we're going to bring him in, and blah, blah, blah. And then it was, you know, magic from day one, pretty much.
And then it gelled, and then you went on to make the records and stuff like that too.
And
so
then
there was a big process between the first and second record, which I covered all this with Neil too, but I want to get your kind of perspective as well too. So,
there was you know, as you're well aware of that time, you know, when we recorded Doing the Nasty, how did it come out when we did it? It would have been a whole different ballgame, but they sat on it for a year, and then we actually recorded the EP after Nasty, right? So, and then the EP came out first, and then Nasty came out, and then you know,
92 for people who are listening who don't know, it's 1992. The Doing the Nasty came out, and then before that was the Smooth and Deadly EP, which was 91, I think, right? Just before.
Correct. Yeah, it was about 6 months or
6 months in between. Okay.
Yeah. So as we were waiting for the release of Nasty, the record label said, "Well, look, we'll put out an EP and blah 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 while we're sitting on it." So they sat on that record for about a year, and then the EP comes out, then Nasty comes out, then all of a sudden, you know, the musical landscape starts changing, and the whole grunge scene comes in, and you know, you have your Soundgardens and your Alice in Chains and whatever. no one wants to hear Hell of a Time at this point because it's this whole new thing, right? Like this whole new sound.
Dark lyrics, dark sound.
Guitars and stuff. And it's like, okay. Right. I mean, we were lucky enough to get the success that we did have off it, which, you know, it still blows my mind to this day. I mean, it's a great record. You know, I was just listening to it the other day. It was a great record. It's a great record. And I'm really proud of it. And it still, to me, stands up today. The production on it, everything sounds great. But the musical climate had changed, and we kind of got caught up in that whole shift. So we went after that record had been done, and we toured it and did everything, and it's done its cycle. We went and started writing for the next record. So as we were writing for the next record, you know, tons of songs. I can't even tell you a number, 70, 80 songs we had and we were writing. So our record label comes down, and they are like, oh, we played them everything, and they're like, yeah, we don't hear it. It's not organic enough. And I looked at them, I said, what the is organic? What did you mean by organic? Like what? Planted?
Seems like a buzzword that they used at the time.
Yeah, and then the answer that I got was absolutely brilliant. Was we don't know, but that's not it.
Well, there you go. That's exactly it. That pretty much sums it up.
So now we're all pissed off, right? We'd spent all this time working. We'd spent all this time, you know, trying to write songs, trying to get the next record together, and it wasn't good enough for our label. So then the riff, I'm sitting there on Neil's Riser, and then the riff for 20-something comes out of me. So that was the start of Irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
So then, you know, we go back and meet with the label. The label says, no, we'll move you to a smaller subsidiary label. We were like, no, fuck you. We're not doing that. You know, we know what we're doing. Biggest mistake we made. You know, we dumped our manager because we knew everything. We were better than that. We knew how to do everything. How wrong we couldn't have been. You know, so we did all that. We left our management. But then we went with A&M Records, and we put out Irrelevant. And Irrelevant, you know, listening to that record, it's a really good record. Really proud of it.
Oh yeah.
But it's a very angry album. It's really angry. Like I Want a Gun just basically
EMI. I Want a Gun.
EMI, you know, the Pistols tune. Yeah. You know, the Pistols tune, you know, doing that was basically a FU to, you know, to EMI. So
yeah.
So
and
we
the
were
song
like,
you have on there called EMI too, which is when people that were talking about the record labels. That wasn't happening a lot back then. Bands talking about the record labels, but you guys were doing it.
You know, the Sex Pistols, you know, wrote EMI, so we decided to cover it because, again, that's exactly what we were thinking about. We hated EMI, we hated all the business, and we were angry. Like, we were angry kids. Like, we were not happy campers. So, you know, we wrote that out, and then finally, you know, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta get a life. Like, I can't not do this. So I walked away, and then that's sort of when the band started falling apart.
So you decided, so the band, you know, it might have continued, but you decided, you told the guys, yeah, I'm walking out. This is at the end of the tour, 95, 96. Whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't handle being broke anymore. I couldn't handle doing like that. I mean, I had a new wife. I had everything. You know, I needed to kind of grow up, and I needed to kind of do things. What, you know, again, you know, I have my wife, and, you know, thank God, my ex-wife now at the time, in my ear, you know, barking at me about, you know, you got to quit, you got to do this, and you're like, you're just getting pushed in all this direction. So you're like, okay, well, I made a choice to be with my wife, so I've got to do what I've got to do for my family according to what she wants, not necessarily what I wanted. It wasn't the right thing to do at the time. I don't know. I can still say to this point, what if, you know, but you can't live your life what if. That was the decision that I made, and that's the one that I had to do. And then everything just sort of just fell apart from there.
Yeah. One thing I want to go back to, you said they sat on the record, the Nasty record, for a year. Do you know why that was? I
have no idea. You know what? To this day, I still have no idea. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Maybe we just, you know, maybe they had to slot it in when they wanted to release it, right? Back in those days, you know, like now, you do all your work for yourself. Your own, publicist,
your own videos, your own stuff, everything.
Your own everything.
Fans yourself, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but back then they had departments of people doing this stuff. So who knows, like, when we were slated to come out and what was in between all that and all this sort of stuff. Who knows? I really don't know. And I still, to this day, you know, if I sat on it, it would drive me crazy going, well, why did they sit on it for so damn?
Yeah, you could drive yourself crazy thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason for that, right? So
yeah,
it is what it is. It turned out the way it is, and it turned out what it was. And do I have any regrets? No, I don't live life regrets anymore, right? So it is what it is, and it turned out how it did, and we're pretty fortunate and pretty lucky to have the success that we did have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I noticed that back in that day, and this is me going back and looking, but Much Music, the video channel, really supported you guys a lot back then, especially on the first record, mainly
Absolutely.
on the first record, but you had a lot of support then from them.
Absolutely. We had a lot of support in radio from Canada. Every radio station was playing us. Much Music was playing the hell out of us. And, we were down there all the time. It was a really, really good time to be us in the 90s and in that time, because Much Music, they're when they actually played music, they promoted the hell out of us, and they played us all the time. There wasn't like you could turn it on anytime, you wait an hour and boom, there we were.
Yeah, Hell of a Time was on the channel Power, the Pepsi Power Hour, I think it was called back then. Yeah, they played it all the time.
The Pepsi Power Hour, that was
20 something got some play on there too, I think, for a while too. It was that they did a little bit of push with that, I do believe, with 20 something.
Yeah, they did. They did a little push with 20 something. Funny enough, with 20 something, there was a guy, I forget his name, but he remade that video with like 3 chicks and like just doing really bad stuff.
Really?
Yeah, but it's a great video. Like, it turned out great. Like, if you ever get a chance to see it, it's an alternate version of 20 something.
Wow. It's on YouTube?
Yeah. Okay. And he did a great job with it, and it's really good. And you know what? I like, people with some guys might be like, no, you can't use our stuff. I'm like, go ahead.
It gets your music out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was like, what, 10 years ago or something like that. Maybe longer, I don't know. But it was really cool to actually see someone take a liking to our song and do something with it. And, that blew me away. It absolutely blew me away, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, that's good to have. It's good to hear. Yeah. I remember the 20-something single had the CD single. This is going back years when they used to make CD singles. It had the Canadian $20 bill was on the thing too. It was just awesome. It's a cool visual.
Yeah,
we were picking that
up. Like Dave, our lyricist, was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant at coming up with great, catchy. And then him and Nick together were really good as far as, working off each other and coming up with lyrics and stuff. So Dave was like our Pi du Bois, like from Max Webster. And he was always good with lyrics. He was always good, and it was always very, very, very witty about the things that he came out with. Yeah,
there's a lot of that in there too. That comes from him.
Oh yeah.
Was he? Did he help you guys on the? Did he write on the second record too on Irrelevant, or is it just?
Oh hell yes!
There you go. I remember.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yes. He helped. He big time helped us on the second record. He was just an instrumental part of Slik as any one of us was. Yeah. And his lyrics were absolutely fantastic on both Slik records, on all 3 Slik records. They were fantastic.
Awesome. A couple more things on Slik Toxik. We'll go a little further than that. The album covers for both records are very striking for those who haven't seen it. Of course, Nasty is in the bathroom there with the chicks puking. Well, you can't see them doing it. It's not.
Well, it wasn't a chick. It's a guy. It's a guy puking. Yeah.
I'm interested to hear about those 2 covers.
Yeah. Well, doing Nasty, believe it or not, we used to rehearse at our management's place in the basement. So we used to rehearse there. And they built that bathroom's built. It's not like a real bathroom. It was built. That whole thing was a set. It was built. And Ron Boudreau, who is a absolutely wonderful photographer out of, did all of our shots for that record and all of our shots for. No, he didn't do our shots for Irrelevant. I'm not sure. I have to actually look that up whether he did or didn't. So that was all built, and we did our posing in there and everything else. So we did all that. Wow. Then for Irrelevant, the whole ink blot test was exactly what that record meant, which was it's irrelevant what the album's called. It's irrelevant what that title is. It's irrelevant what's on the record, right? So that's sort of where we were at. in headspace wise at that point. And then, you know, we were pretty angry kids.
Yeah.
Pretty
It came
angry.
out great. Yeah, it's an angry record, but for those who've never heard it or are sleeping on it or think your band is just about a hell of a time, I mean, there's some great songs on there. Dive,
I
Blue
personally,
Monday,
I
20
personally think
something.
there's some, yeah, I think there's some really good
Yeah,
songs
Liquid
on there.
Calm. There's great music on there. Nick sounds amazing on there. You guys all do, obviously, but it's just a great
Yeah.
record people need to hear now.
It's a really good record. It was a really good record, and it was, you know, like we were, like I said, we were pretty angry when we were making it. So I wouldn't say it was a really fun record to make.
Yeah.
It was a very introspective record to make, and it was a record that we did a lot of thought on, I think. And I think
Yeah.
we were kind of like, you know, let's give them what we're about really now, as opposed to the hell of a time, all this
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
The lighter atmosphere.
Yeah, and whether that worked in our favor or not, I'm not really sure, but I know it was a really heavy record, and I really, like I said, that was where my headspace was at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned you guys wrote a bunch of stuff and recorded a bunch of stuff a little bit before that. Did any of that? Do you still have any of that music? Did you just wipe it?
You know, sadly enough, I don't have any Slik Toxik stuff. I have nothing, and I'm pretty sad about that, but you know, at the same time, it is what it is. You know, I moved a lot in my life, and I've gone through a lot in my life, so a lot of that stuff sort of went by the wayside. I do have my gold record, my Juno, and I do have my Green Explorer, which is like sitting right there. So that makes me, you know, that's enough for that era. That's for sure.
That's very cool. So after you left Slik Toxik, you left to go and take, you know, have family life and be a normal working man, a normal Kevin Gale.
And then
where did life go for you? What did you do next?
Okay, so what happened is I you know, had my daughter and you know, married my wife and everything else like that, and then finally, you know, that relationship was coming to an end. And Daryl Miller from the Killer Dwarfs, the drummer, has his solo band, which is Automan, and he's a singer in that band. So he asked me, he says, "Hey, do you want to come and be a rhythm guitar player?" And I'm like, I haven't picked up a guitar in 5 freaking years. Like I you know, after I left Slik, I was like, no, I'm not.
So this is early 2000s, 2000?
Yeah, like this is like really early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so no, this is actually maybe 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. And then he asked me to come and do it. I'm like, dude, I haven't picked up a guitar in you know, years. So I picked it up and I started playing it. So then got gear and I went and did stuff with Daryl. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I ended up quitting that band. And then fast forward a few years later, I started putting together Punishment. That in itself was good for what it was at the time. And then it sort of just fizzled away. Again, you know, there's always band dynamics that don't work out. There's always, you know, band things that don't work out. And then it just sort of fizzled. So then after that, I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with music. I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. I don't care. I don't want to play in a band anymore. I'll just play at home and I'll be happy playing at home and I'll do that. So fast forward, you know, after the end of my second marriage, fast forward to that. After all that, I haven't played in anything else like that. So I meet my current wife and we are, you know, and she's like, you know, you really need to play. You really need to do stuff. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't really want to play in a band again. And then my old bass player from Punishment, Mark, he says, look, I'm putting together a band. He goes, I know you don't want to play in music. I know you want to do it. I know you don't want to, but have a listen to it and see if you're interested. So I had to listen to it and I sat on it for probably about 2 months. And I was like, you know what, this is pretty good. It's all right. Finally, I sat down with my wife and I was talking to her and I said, you know, what should I do? I don't know what to do. I don't want to get back into a band again, just drama, bullshit, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into that again. And she's like, you know what? You really need to go and do this. You really need to go and do this. So now the band that I'm currently in, Crowning Kings, we just put out a 4-song EP and we have a 3-song EP out before that. So that is where I am at now as far as music goes, right? I mean, without the prodding from my wife and without her saying, you know, you really need to go do something. I think probably because I was driving her nuts just sitting at home doing nothing.
Plus we had that whole pandemic thing where everybody sat around and drove each other nuts. Yeah.
But you know, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be. I would probably not be playing in a band, and I'd just be playing for her at home and just, you know, writing songs on the guitar and doing that stuff. But you know, ever since Mark has asked me to get this, I'm having a great time in this band. There's zero drama, there's zero anything. We all have lives outside of here. We know we're not going to be rock stars, so we just want to go out and we just want to write some good songs, and we want to go do that stuff, right? So that's exactly where we're at right now.
When you talked about Punishment, was that the first time that you formed a band yourself around you? It was kind of your first real project of your own?
Yeah, and I didn't want to make it about me, and I didn't want to make it that I was Kevin Gale from Slik Toxik. I just wanted to be part of a band. I didn't want to have that notoriety or that, you know, that expectation, what people think, you know, what people think you're going to sound like, you know, like you think you're going to sound
2.0 like, or whatever. Yeah.
And I don't, and that's not even remotely where my headspace is at regarding, you know, writing songs or being in that respect anymore. You know, every once in a while I'll say like, oh, do I remember, you know, like Hell of a Time, or do I remember this? And I'm like, you know, and I still do, because I mean, I probably played it like 5,463,000 times. So that's, you know, I feel like it, you know, every time I do it, I'm gonna pop out of the stage in a toaster or something, right? Yeah. So, yeah, but it, you know, that's not like, that's where I was at, but that's not where I'm at now at the age of 54, which is hard to believe. I can't believe I'm 54, but you know, it is a number, and you know what? That's all it is. It is a number, and that's how long I've been on the planet. But you know, like for me, as far as writing songs and stuff now, I just write whatever comes. Like, it's not like about being formulaic. It's not about being whatever. It's just whatever comes out. It ends up sounding like me anyway. So I'm not trying to be anything other than just myself. The hardest part for me, like, you know, was being able to sound like, go, okay, well, what do I sound like? And what do I, you know,
as Kevin Gale, not as a guitarist. Yeah, talks about what is Kevin Gale? What kind of tone? What kind of sound do you have? Style.
And like, that's exactly it. And I think I've stumbled across that, and I think I've you know stumbled across that where people can go, oh, that's Kev Riff, and they'll know that that's me, right? Like, I mean, all my friends go, oh yeah, that's you. They know exactly what I sound like when they hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like all the greats, like Slash, Malmsteen, all those guys. Right?
You know them when you hear them. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
That's just kind of like, I just want to write good songs. I just want people to get, you know, like, if they get it, great. If they don't, that's great too. I mean, that the best part about music is that it's all subjective. So if you get it, that's awesome. If you don't, that's awesome too, right? Exactly. So, right, yeah, it's just music, and it's a lot of fun to do, and I'm very, very blessed that I can actually do this.
Yeah, for sure. Did Punishment release any music, or is it just playing gigs?
There's stuff out there. There's 2 records of Punishment. There's Beautiful Suffering and Remnants of Things Left Unsaid. And so there's 2 records out there of Punishment stuff.
Okay, so people can check that. Is it still streaming? Do you know? Is it people can see?
Yeah, it's still streaming. I mean, the Crowning Kings stuff just came out. It is all on all of your major service providers.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah. And the new band, Crowning, what was it again?
Crowning Kings.
Crowning Kings, yeah. You said you have music out there the same way it's out there on...
Yes, the same way. It's all out there. It's all on, you know, it's on Spotify and all your streaming services and all that sort of stuff. And I'm really, really proud of this stuff, and I think it's really, really good. And I think it's you know, it can stand up. It's good stuff.
People need to check that. I'm going to put some of the in the audio version of this. I'm going to put some of the songs in there too as well, MP3s them as well, so people can check it out and hear what you're doing now. I think it's good to hear it too.
Wonderful.
Have you guys played live shows as the band?
Oh yeah, Crowning Kings. We played a bunch of shows. You know, we our drummer had to take some time off for some family issues or some issues that he's had. So we've got a new drummer, Brent Nimme from Sandman. That's the Metallica cover band. Is now our drummer full time. And he is absolutely incredible and absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to do some live shows with him because it's going to be a lot of fun. And he just fits right in like with the rest of us, and it's become a very, very cohesive unit, and it's pretty much a juggernaut when it gets going.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Oh yeah,
that's good to hear. Do you have shows on the books for 2023? Do you have anything planned?
Not as of yet. We probably won't be out there until I don't want to make a guess, but I think maybe closer to, you know, springtime in 2023. I think that's when we're going to be out there starting to do stuff. But we'll be doing shows for sure.
Is that going to be around here, like on the East Coast, around Toronto, around that whole Ontario area, or
it's probably going to be in, you know, like in the Kitchener, London, you know, London, Toronto
East
area
Ontario type of thing?
Yeah, it's going to be Southern Ontario. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
No, we're going on tour with Metallica.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have? I know it depends. It's hard to say right now because you need people to, you need promoters, clubs to book you and stuff like that. But do you see yourself traveling across the country or going anywhere else with it? If you could,
not. There is no way I am traveling across the country. If I had to travel across the country the way, like, you know, the way we used to, you know, in vans,
in a van.
Yeah, I'd be dead. You know, there's just no way.
That's when 54 becomes more of a less of a number and more of a feeling.
Yeah. It's like, you remember when you did this to your hip?
You did this 30. Wow, it's 30 years ago. Wow, that's hard to believe.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now I'm paying you back, and that's how it's going to go. Yeah, you know,
it has to make sense for you physically and, of course, financially too.
Financially, physically, you know, we've all got responsibilities. We've all got things that we have to, you know, to take care of here at home. So if we could do it, I mean, I would love to go.
If you got a good offer, if someone out in Vancouver or somewhere out there on the West Coast said, "Hey, we want you down here to play one of our gigs or whatever, or some kind of festival or whatever is going on out there," you would go if the money made sense, obviously. If
it made sense. If
people don't think about the business part of it, it's got to be making sense.
If it's got to make sense, and it's got, like, the way you got to do shows nowadays is that they all have to make sense and they all have to be whatever, because, you know, it's just, if it doesn't make sense, it's just not going to work.
Exactly.
Right?
You'd play anywhere you could. It's got to make sense, and people don't realize that it's music business. People forget that last word, business.
It is a business. I mean, we don't, you know, like us musicians, we don't, you know, we don't. You know, food is not free. It's not even close
anymore.
No, like the price of lettuce. You want to get a Caesar salad? Yeah, you're paying $8.
Yeah, you're paying a lot to eat well, and you're paying a lot for gas now, especially if you're here where we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where are you guys at?
I'm in Ottawa.
Are you Ottawa?
Just up the street, up the Ontario street. Yeah.
It's funny. My wife and I were just in Ottawa. We were at we stayed at the Chateau Laurier for 2 days.
Oh wow! Yeah, it's a nice place. Apparently.
Yeah, well, because I was born in Ottawa and I lived there until I was 7. Yeah, which is really cool. The fact that you are in Ottawa, that's kind of
it's our cool. Good old capital, for whatever that means.
Well, you know what? It's
a sleepy city up here, man. I'm telling you. I don't know if Slik Toxik ever played here back in the day, but I've always found this to be a very sleepy government city.
Yes, we sure did. We played there.
I'm sorry I missed that. I was a little young. I was late to the party, obviously, but as all things.
You know, it was a lot of fun. That's good. That's all I'll say. It was a lot of fun.
When of course, when I talked to Neil, obviously he was doing his rebranding of Child. He was doing new projects. He has a new project out there as well too. You know, Nick is doing bands since since the 2000s. Some really good stuff. Have you ever been asked to guest on any of their projects? Have you thought about being a part of what they're doing?
No, not at all. And
you weren't asked, or you never thought about it?
No, I've never been asked. And you know what? That's okay. I mean, like, you know, if they needed me for something, I would be there in a heartbeat. Like if they said, "Hey, we need your style on this song," I'd be like, "All right, sure, I'll be there in a minute." But you know, they haven't needed me. Like, so that's fine. I'm not really worried about that.
Do you still have any contact with Rob or with anybody else with Pat?
I haven't
for that matter. People forget about Adam, who came in on the second record. Adam.
Yeah, I haven't spoke to Rob in probably 30 years. And I haven't spoke to Adam in quite some time. Neil I've spoken to, and Nick I've spoken to. I actually just spoke to Nick briefly last month to wish him a happy birthday.
Okay, that's cool. So you have still contact with them? Not with
We're not
having
dinner. Yeah, we're not having dinner, but you know, at the same time, you know, the door is always open. If he was to ever reach out and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'd be like, "I don't know. What do you want to do?"
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, the door is always open.
And I asked Neil this. I'll ask you too. Do you ever see if there's a chance Nick called you guys up? Because we know that Nick has the name, Nick has the band. So if he said, "Hey, I want to do something with Slik Toxik, do a reunion, do a show, whatever," would you be down to participate? Would you get back into it?
If it made sense.
There There you go.
Yes, I would
figure
do
that
it.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do it. I do it because it would make sense, and I would love to see how we would approach these songs at our age now.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hell of a time going back, and you have to fire that up again, see if you can get those chords out again.
Yeah,
when's the last time you played? Do you play those? Do you play Slik Toxik songs when you play with the band with Crowning Kings?
No,
never.
No,
it's like a Creed Ultra Bridge thing where you don't touch the prior catalog.
Well, that's what I did, right? Like, it's not what I am now; it's what I did, and you know what? It was awesome for what it was, but it's not. It's not what I do now.
I think that's very cool because a lot of bands, a lot of members would hang their hat on that because that's what they're known for, right? So they want to, give the people what they want. So it's good that you're pushing. It's harder, but you're pushing through with something original and new.
Well, my whole thing is that that was with them, and there was a certain the reason why that band worked is not because of any one individual member. The reason why that band worked is because there was 5 distinct guys that made it all work together, and they brought their own personalities and their own thing to it, right? So, to try to incorporate that or recreate it with somebody else, it's not going to work, and it won't ever work because it was what it was at the time with those guys. I know Nick, when in his famous underground band, will do Slik Toxik covers and stuff like that. I don't
Everyone
get
a singer too, as well. I think is the voice. People want to hear that.
Yeah, I don't get it, but you know what? If that's what you want to do, and you want to like he's been pretty harsh on the band, kind of making it sound like it was not something that he was real proud of, or he was
that's
whatever.
The impression I've got, from interviews. I don't know. I've never spoke to him. I don't know the man, but that's what I'm. That's the impression.
You know what? And but yet you'll go and you promote yourself as the singer of Slik Toxik. Why? If you weren't happy with it, why would you do that? Right? Like, I was quite happy with the band and I was quite happy with everything, with what we accomplished. But why would you go and carve on it and still use it to promote yourself? Right? Like, that's the,
do you know why he feels that way? If you,
I will never, ever answer for him. So I don't know why he feels that way. But if that's what he wants to do, then, knock yourself out, but don't carve on it at the same time. Right?
Yeah. That's true. So it seems like it's not likely he would ever call up and say, I want to do this again. He's trying to kind of distance himself from that and do something, which is fine. But
yeah, and you know what? That's totally cool, and that's totally fine. And that's what he wants to do, then you know what? The only thing I wish for any of my old bandmates and anybody in general is that just be happy. Like, just be happy with what you're doing. Don't live in regret. Don't live in whatever. Don't harbor don't be spiteful. Don't be whatever. Just be happy what you're doing, and if you're totally happy doing that, great. If you're not, then don't do it. You know what I mean? It's just that simple.
That's a great message to kind of to end this, because it's going to end in about, I'm trying to look at the thing, it's about less than 1 minute. So before I lose you,
let's end this now.
That's exactly the thing. One last thing then. So you got a record out there in an EP, I think you said, with Crowning Kings. Are you working on new music still?
Oh yeah. So it's Crowning Kings, Rain After Midnight, and the first one is Hello, It's Been a While.
Okay.
So those 2 EPs, and they're out on any streaming service that you can get. Really proud of that stuff, and I think it sounds really great.
Okay, awesome. Well, definitely get that, because I want to feature that in the show so people can check it out, as well as music from your past as well too. Punishment,
wonderful,
and of course, Slik Toxik. Play a little hell of a time, but. Kevin, it's good to have your conversation, man. We should do this again when you get out there doing more shows. I want to hear more about what you're doing and get a little bit more in deep on stuff about you if we can.
Absolutely, we will.
Awesome,
for sure.
Kevin.
We'll do this.
Sky